We are live.
Yay! Happy hump day. Sorry we're a minute late. I am old new dude, and he is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son, and really, I'm the one that was a minute late.
That's okay. I was 20 minutes early, just sitting there reading a comic book. uh, Prologue to Storm of Swords. Ooh. Feels weird starting a new book.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, we didn't do this until a book ago.
Yeah,
Well, I know there's a lot to get to.
yeah.
So without further ado, take it away, Richard.
Well, let's do it. Oh, I suppose we should look through this real quick here.
Oh, yeah.
Victory for Lizzie. Okay. Sorry, the Legends thing. Anyway. All right. Uh, Storm Prologue. Chet. Trigger warning, this is Chet, also his pal Softfoot. The day was gray and bitter cold, and the dogs would not take the scent. The big black bitch, jeez, taken one sniff at the, it's a little alliteration there. The big black bitch had taken one sniff at the bear tracks, backed off, and skulked back to the pack with her tail between her legs. The dogs huddled together miserably on the riverbank as the wind snapped at them. It was too bloody cold for man or beast, but here they were. His mouth twisted, and he could almost feel the boils that covered his cheeks and neck growing red and angry. I should be safe back at the wall, tending the bloody ravens and making fires for old Maester Aemon. It was the bastard Jon Snow who had taken that from him and his fat friend Sam Tarly. It was their fault he was here, freezing his bloody balls off with a pack of hounds deep in the haunted forest.
Hey, I don't know if I pointed this out or if I pointed it out when the book club did this one. Chet would be there if Sam wasn't, regardless.
Yeah,
Someone
because
had to
Sam's there.
tend the
Yep.
ravens. Chet does not know how to read, so he cannot do all help Maester Aemon in all of his things. So without Sam being at the wall, Chet would still be north of the wall.
Yep. 7 hells. He gave the lashes a hard yank to leashes. Sorry, he gave leashes a hard yank to get the dog's attention. Track, you bastards! That's a bear print. You want some meat or no? Fine! But the hounds only huddled closer, whining. Chet snapped his short lash, there was the lash, above their heads, and the black bitch snarled at him. Dog meat would taste as good as bear, he warned her, his breath frosting with every word. Lark the sisterman stood with his arms crossed. Of course, we know that we're going to eventually see this bear, at least in a flashback from Sam, so we know why they're not wanting to hunt this bear.
Yeah.
Lark the sisterman stood with his arms crossed over his chest and his hands tucked up into his armpits. He wore black wool gloves, but he was always complaining how his fingers were frozen. It's too bloody cold to hunt, he said. Bugger this bear. He's not worth freezing over. We can't go back empty-handed, Lark, rumbled Small Paul through the brown whiskers that covered most of his face. The Lord Commander wouldn't like that. There was ice under the big man's squashed pug nose where his snot had frozen. A huge hand and a thick fur glove clenched tight around the shaft of a spear. Bugger that old bear, too, said the sisterman, a thin man with sharp features and nervous eyes. Mormont will be dead before daybreak, remember? Who cares what he likes? Small Paul blinked his black little eyes. Maybe he had forgotten, Chet thought. He was stupid enough to forget most anything. Why do we have to kill the old bear? Why don't we just go off and let him be? You think he'll let us be? Said Lark. He'll hunt us down. You want to be hunted, you great muttonhead? No, said Small Paul. I don't want that. I don't. So you'll kill him? Said Lark. Yes. The huge man stamped the butt of his spear on the frozen river bank. I will. He shouldn't hunt us. The fisherman took his hands from his armpits and turned to Chet. We need to kill all the officers, I say. Chet was sick of hearing it. We've been over this. The old bear dies, and Blaine from the Shadow Tower. Grubbs and Athan as well. They're ill luck for drawing the watch. Dywin and Bannon for their tracking, and Sir Piggy for the ravens. That's all. We kill them quiet while they sleep. One scream and we're worm food, every one of us. His boys were red with rage. Just do your bit and see that your cousins do theirs. And Paul, try and remember, it's third watch, not second. Third watch, the big man said through hair and frozen snot. Me and Softfoot. I remember, Chet. The moon would be black tonight, and they had jiggered the watches so as to have 8 of their own standing sentry, with 2 more guarding the horses. It wasn't going to get much riper than that. Besides, the wildlands could be upon them any day now. Chet meant to be well away from here before that happened. He meant to live. As usual, the moon makes no sense. So for the moon to be near black or near new, it has to be high in the sky near high noon and go below the horizon in the late afternoon or early evening. It is the angle relative to the sun that determines the phase of the moon. Anyway, 300 sworn brothers of the Night's Watch had ridden north, 200 from Castle Black and another 100 from the Shadow Tower. It was the biggest ranging in living memory, near a third of the Watch's strength. They meant to find Ben Stark, Sir Waymar Royce, and the other rangers who'd gone missing, and discover why the wildlands were leaving their villages. Well, they were no closer to Stark and Royce than when they'd left the wall, but they learned where all the wildlands had gone, up into the icy heights of the god-forsaken Frostfangs. They could squat up there till the end of time, and it wouldn't prick Chet's boils none. But no, they were coming down the Milkwater. Chet raised his eyes, and there it was. The river's stony banks were bearded by ice, its pale milky waters flowing endlessly down out of the Frostfangs. And now Mance Rayder and his wildlings were flowing down the same way. Thorin Smallwood had returned in a lather 3 days past. While he was telling the old bear what his scouts had seen, his man Kedge Wid-Eye told the rest of them. They're still well up the foothills, but they're coming, Kedge said, warming his hands over the fire. Harma the Dog's Head has the van, poxy bitch. Gody crept up on her camp and saw her plain by the fire. That fool Tumberjohn wanted to pick her off with an arrow, but Smallwood had better sense. Chet spat. How many were there, could you tell? Many and more. 20, 30,000. We didn't stay to count. Harma had 500 in the van, every one a horse. The men around the fire exchanged uneasy looks. It was a rare thing to find even a dozen mounted wildlings. 500? Smallwood sent Bannon and me wide around the van to catch a peek at the main body, Ketch went on. There was no end to them. They're moving slow as a frozen river, 4 or 5 miles a day. They don't look like they mean to go back to their villages neither. More than half were women and children, and they were driving their animals before them, goats, sheep, even arcs dragging sledges. They loaded up with bales of fur and sides of meat, cages of chickens, butter churns, and spinning wheels, every damn thing they own. The mules and garrons were so heavy laden you'd think their backs would break, the women as well. And they follow the Milkwater? Lark the Sisterman asked. I said so, didn't I? The Milkwater would take them past the fists of the first men, the ancient ring fort where the Night's Watch had made its camp. Any man with a thimble of sense could see that it was time to pull up stakes and fall back on the wall. The old bear had strengthened the fist with spikes and pits and caltrops. Against such a host, all that was pointless. If they stayed here, they would be engulfed and overwhelmed. So Chet has a thimble of sense, and Mormont apparently does not. And Thorin Smallwood wanted to attack. Sweet Donald Hill was squire to Sir Malador Locke, and the night before last Smallwood had come to Locke's tent. Sir Malador had been of the same mind as old Sir Otten Withers, urging a retreat from the wall, but Smallwood wanted to convince him otherwise. This king beyond the wall will never look for us so far north, Sweet Donald reported him saying. And this great host of his is a shambling horde, full of useless mouths, who won't know what end of a sword to hold. One blow will take all the fight out of them and send them howling back to their hovels for another 50 years. So Smallwood thinks he's Stannis. And based on Stannis' success, if they actually had enough cavalry to launch an impressive attack, this could work. They do not.
Yeah.
300 against 30,000. Chet called that rank madness. And what was madder still was that Sir Malador had been persuaded, and the two of them together were on the point of persuading the old bear. If we wait too long, this chance may be lost, never to come again, Smallwood was saying to anyone who would listen. Against that, Sir Otten Withers said, We are the shield that guards the realms of men. You do not throw away your shield for no good purpose. To that, Thorin Smallwood said, In a sword fight, a man's surest defense is the swift stroke that slays his foe, not cringing behind a shield. Neither Smallwood nor Withers had the command, though. Lord Mormont did, and Mormont was waiting for his other scouts, for Jarman Buckwell and the men who'd climbed the Giant Stair, and for Corn Halfhand and Jon Snow, who'd gone to probe the Scrowing Pass. Buckwell and the Halfhand were late in returning, though, dead most like. Chet pictured Jon Snow lying blue and frozen on some bleak mountaintop with a wildling spear up his bastard's arse. The thought made him smile. I hope they killed his bloody wolf as well. There's no bear here, he decided abruptly. Just an old print, that's all. Back to the fist. The dogs almost yanked him off his feet, as eager to get back as he was. Maybe they thought they were going to get fed. Chet had to laugh. He hadn't fed them for 3 days now to turn them mean and hungry. Tonight, before slipping off into the dark, he turned them loose among the horse lines after Sweet Donald Hill and Clubfoot Carl cut the tethers. They'll have snarling hounds and panicked horses all over the fist, running through fires, jumping the ring wall, and trampling down tents. With all the confusion, it might be hours before anyone noticed that 14 brothers were missing. It's a great example of when the half-hand says all the men underestimate those wildlings. LOL. He knows better. One thing I don't like about this plan is I would think they would immediately look to Chet to help if he's in charge of wrangling the hounds.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
I mean, all in all, it's not that bad of a plan, though. I mean,
yeah, and the fact that they wouldn't be able to locate him, well, would they really have that much time to look for him? They'd be kind of preoccupied.
Yeah.
Larkin wanted to bring in twice that number, but what could you expect from some stupid fisherman, whatever. Whisper a word in the wrong ear, and before you knew it, you'd be short ahead. No, 14 was a good number, enough to do what needed doing, but not so many that they couldn't keep the secret. I don't know. Benjamin Franklin would say that 2 men can keep a secret if one of them's dead. Chet had recruited most of them himself. Small Paul was one of his, the strongest man in the wall, even if he was slower than a dead snail. He'd once broken a wildling's back with a hug. They had Dirk as well, named for his favorite weapon, and the little gray man the brothers called Softfoot, who'd raped 100 women in his youth, and liked to boast how none had ever seen nor heard him until he shoved it up inside them. The plan was Chet's. He was the clever one. He'd been steward to old Maester Aemon for 4 good years before that bastard Jon Snow had done him out so his job could be handed to his fat pig of a friend. When he killed Sam Tarly tonight, he planned to whisper, "Give my love to Lord Snow," right in his ear before he sliced her piggy's throat open to let the blood come bubbling out through all those layers of suet. Chet knew the ravens, so he wouldn't have no trouble there, no more than he would with Tarly. One touch of the knife and that craven would piss his pants and start blubbering for his life. Let him beg. It won't do him no good. After he opened his throat, he'd open the cages and shoo the birds away, so no messages reached the wall. Softfoot and Small Paw would kill the old bear. Dirk would do Blaine, and Larkin and his cousins would silence Bannon and old Dywin to keep them from sniffing after their trail. They'd been caching food for a fortnight, and Sweet Donald and Clubfoot Carl would have the horses ready. With Mormont dead, command would pass to Sir Otten Withers, an old done man and failing. He'll be running for the wall before sundown, and he won't waste no men sending them after us neither. Hello from Chicago, says Mother Roy. And Chris the Crow says he loves Small Paul. So this is the first time that Chet predicts Sam will piss his pants. One touch of the knife, and that craven would piss his pants. So anyway.
Yeah.
Someone pissed their pants, so part of the plan worked. The dogs pulled at him as they made their way through the trees. Chet could see the fist punching its way up through the green. The day was so dark that the old bear had the torches lit, a great circle of them burning all along the ring wall that crowned the top of the steepy, stony hill. The 3 of them waded across a brook. The water was icy cold and patches of ice were spreading across its surface. "I'm going to make for the coast," Lark the sisterman confided. "Me and my cousins. We'll build us a boat, sail back home to the sisters." And at home they'll know you for deserters and lop off your full heads, thought Chet. There was no leaving the Night's Watch once you said your words. Anywhere in the 7 kingdoms they'd take you and kill you. All a Lopan now, he was talking about sailing back to Tyrosh, where he claimed men didn't lose their hands for a bit of honest thievery, nor get sent off to freeze their life away for being found in bed with some knight's wife. Chet had weighed going with him, but he didn't speak their wet, girly tongue. And what could he do in Tyrosh? He had no trade to speak of, growing up in Hagsmire. His father had spent his life grubbing in other men's fields and collecting leeches. He'd strip down bare but for a thick leather clout and go wading in the murky waters. When he climbed out, he'd be covered from nipple to ankle. Sometimes he made Chet help pull the leeches off. One had attached itself to his palm once, and he'd smashed it against a wall in revulsion. His father beat him bloody for that. The maesters bought the leeches at 12 for a penny. I'm sure Rickon enters the throne room like Tywin, the unicorn pooping on the throne room floor.
I like
Lark could go home if he liked, and the damn Tyroshi too, but not Chet. If he never saw Hagsmire again, it would be too bloody soon. He'd like the look of Craster's Keep himself. Craster lived high as a lord there, so why shouldn't he do the same? That would be a laugh. Chet the leechman's son, a lord with a keep. His banner could be a dozen leeches on a field of pink. But why stop at lord? Maybe he should be a king. Mance Raider started out a crow. I could be a king same as him, and have me some wives. Craster had 19, not even counting the young ones, the daughters he hadn't gotten around to bedding yet. Half them wives were as old and ugly as Craster, but that didn't matter. The old ones Chet could put to work cooking and cleaning for him, pulling carrots and slopping pigs, while the young ones warmed his bed and bore his children. Craster wouldn't object, not when Small Paul gave him a hug. The only woman Chet had ever... Oh, we got a couple. Let's see, right? This is canon now. Chet's dad should have hooked up with Lord Leech himself. Good money there. Oh, yeah, you're right. He probably would have paid more for leeches.
Yeah.
The only woman Chet had ever known were the whores he'd bought in Molestown. When he'd been younger, the village girls took one look at his face with its boils and its wen and turned away sickened. The worst was that slattern Bessa. She'd spread her legs for every boy in Hagsmire, so he'd figured why not him too? He even spent a morning picking wildflowers when he heard she liked them. But she just laughed in his face and told him she'd crawl into bed with his father's leeches before she'd crawl in one with him. She stopped laughing when he put his knife in her. That was sweet, the look on her face. So he pulled the knife out and put it in her again. When they caught him down near Seven Streams, old Lord Walter Frey hadn't even bothered to come himself to do the judging. He sent one of his bastards, that Walter Rivers, and the next thing Chet had known, he was walking to the wall with that foul-smelling black devil Yoren. To pay for his one sweet moment, they took his whole life. But now he meant to take it back, and Craster's woman, too. That twisted old wineling has the right of it. If you want a woman to wife, you take her, and none of this giving her flowers so that maybe she don't notice your bloody boils. Chet didn't mean to make that mistake again. It would work, he promised himself for the 100th time. So long as we get away clean. Sir Otton would strike south for the Shadow Tower, the shortest way to the wall. He won't bother with us, not Withers. All he'll want is to get back whole. Thorin Smallwood, now, he'd want to press on with the attack, but Sir Otton's caution ran too deep, and he was senior. It won't matter anyhow. Once we're gone, Smallwood can attack anyone he likes. What do we care? If none of them ever returns to the wall, no one will ever come looking for us. They'll think we died with the rest. That was a new thought, and for a moment it tempted him. But they would need to kill Sir Otton and Sir Malador Locke as well to give Smallwood the command. Both of them were well attended day and night. No, the risk was too great. Chet, said Small Paul as they trudged along a stony green trail through sentinels and soldier pines. What about the bird? What bloody bird? The last thing he needed now was some muttonhead going on about a bird. The old bear's raven, Small Paul said. If we kill him, who's going to feed his bird? Who bloody well cares? Kill the bird too if you like. I don't want to hurt no bird, the big man said. But that's a talking bird. What if it tells what we did? Lark the Cisterman laughed. Small Paul, thick as a castle wall, he mocked. Of course, this is one of many people that people theorize as a descendant of Sir Duncan the Tall.
Yep.
You shut up with that, said Small Paul dangerously. Paul, said Chet, before the big man got too angry. When they find the old man lying in a pool of blood with his throat slit, they won't need no bird to tell them someone killed him. Small Paul chewed on that a moment. That's true, he allowed. Can I keep the bird then? I like that bird. He's yours, said Chet, just to shut him up. We can always eat him if we get hungry, offered Lark. Small Paul clouded up again. Best not try and eat my bird, Lark. Best not. So we have a talking bird and a caricature of Lenny and George, which makes me think of the various Looney Tunes caricatures of them, especially. But I can't say Sylvester, George. Chet could hear voices drifting through the trees. Close your bloody mouths, both of you. We're almost to the fist. They emerged near the west face of the hill and walked around south where the slope was gentler. Near the edge of the forest, a dozen men were taking archery practice. They'd carved outlines of the trunks of trees and were loosing shafts of them. Look, said Lark, a pig with a bow. Sure enough, the nearest bowman was Sir Piggy himself, the fat boy who had stolen his place with Maester Aemon. Just the sight of Samwell Tarly filled him with anger. Stewarding for Maester Aemon had been as good a life as he'd ever known. The old blind man was undemanding, and Clytus had taken care of most of his wants anyway. Chet's duties were easy, cleaning the rookery, a few fires to build, a few meals to fetch, and Aemon never once hit him. Thinks he can just walk in and shove me out on account of being highborn and knowing how to read? Might be I'll ask him to read my knife before I open his throat with it. You go on, he told the others. I want to watch this. The dogs were pulling, anxious to go with them to the food they thought would be waiting at the top. Chet kicked the bitch with the toe of his boot. That settled him down, son. Some. He watched from the trees as the fat boy wrestled with a longbow as tall as he was, his red moon face screwed up with concentration. 3 arrows stood in the ground before him. Charlie knocked and drew, held the draw a long moment as he tried to aim and let fly. The shaft vanished into the greenery. Chet laughed loudly, a snort of sweet disgust. So Sam's face is often compared to a moon, as LML would point out, and it's actually going to be done again here in this chapter. We'll never find that one, and I'll be blamed, announced Ed Tollett, the dour, gray-haired squire everyone called Dolorous Ed. Nothing ever goes missing that they don't look at me. Ever since that time I lost my horse. As if that could be helped. He was white and it was snowing. What did they expect? The wind took that one, said Gren, another friend of Lord Snow's. Try to hold the bow steady, Sam. It's heavy, the fat boy complained, but he pulled the second arrow all the same. This one went high, sailing through the branches 10 feet above the target. I believe you knocked a leaf off that tree, said Dolorous Ed. Fall is falling fast enough. There's no need to help it, he sighed. And we all know what follows fall. Gods, but I'm cold. Shoot the last arrow, Samwell. I believe my tongue is freezing to the roof of my mouth. So Piggy lowered the bow, and Chet thought he was going to start bawling. It's too hard. Notch, draw, and loose, said Gren. Go on. Dutifully, the fat boy plucked his final arrow from the earth, notched it to his longbow, drew, and released. He did it quickly, without squinting along the shaft painstakingly as he had the first 2 times. The arrow struck the charcoal outline low in the chest and hung quivering. I hit him, Sir Piggy sounded shocked. Gren, did you see? Ed, look, I hit him. Put it between his ribs, I'd say, said Gren. Did I kill him? The fat boy wanted to know. Tollett shrugged. Might have punctured a lung, if he had a lung. Most trees don't, as a rule. He took the bow from Sam's hands. I've seen worse shots, though. And made a few. Sir Piggy was beaming. To look at him, you'd think he'd actually done something. When he saw Chet and the dogs. Yep.
Before we get too far, they were shooting at trees, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They were shooting
at war with the trees.
Yeah.
As if they're at war with the trees, right? And I do wonder about the significance of there being 3 arrows with all the 3s in the story and so forth. I don't know. Well, it just kind of struck me.
Would that mean that there would be 3 battles, possibly? The first 2 lost and the third one won?
Or that Sam's going to get 3 opportunities for something and deliver on the third one? I don't know.
I don't know.
But when he saw Chet and the dogs, his smile curled up and died squeaking. You hit a tree, Chet said. Let's see how you shoot when it's Mance Raiders, lads. They won't stand there with their arms out and their leaves rustling. Oh, no. They'll come right at you, screaming in your face, and I bet you'll piss those breeches. One of them will plant his axe right between those little pig eyes. The last thing you'll hear will be the thunk it makes when it bites into your skull. So this is the second time that Chet predicts Sam will piss his breeches. Slayer, says Chris Crow. The fat boy was shaking. Dolorous Ed put a hand on his shoulder. Brother, he said solemnly, just because it happened that way for you doesn't mean Samwell will suffer the same. What are you talking about, Tollett? The axe that split your skull. Is it true that half your wits leaked out on the ground and your dogs ate them? The big loud Gren laughed, and even Samwell Tarly managed a weak little smile. Chet kicked the nearest dog, yanked on their leashes, and started up the hill. Smile all you want, Sir Piggy. We'll see who laughs tonight. He only wished he had time to kill Tollett as well. Gloomy, horse-faced fool, that's what he is. The climb was steep, even on the side of the fist, which had the gentlest slope. Partway up, the dog started barking and pulling at him, figuring that they'd get fed soon. He gave them a taste of his boot instead and a crack of the whip for the big, ugly one that snapped at him. Once they were tied up, he went to report. The prints were there, like Giant said, but the dogs wouldn't track, he told Mormont in front of his big black tent. Down by the river like that could be old prints. A pity. Lord Commander Mormont had a bald head and a great shaggy gray beard, sounded as tired as he looked. We might all have been better for a bit of fresh meat. The raven on his shoulder bobbed its head and echoed, Meat! 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 We could cook the bloody dogs, Chet thought, but he kept his mouth shut until the old bear sent him on his way. And that's the last time I need to bow my head to that one, he thought to himself with satisfaction. It seemed to him that it was growing even colder, which he would have sworn wasn't possible. The dogs huddled together miserably in the hard frozen mud, and Chet was half tempted to crawl in with them. Instead, he wrapped a black wool scarf around the lower part of his face, leaving a slit for his mouth between the winds. It was warmer if he kept moving, he found, so he made a slow circuit of the perimeter with a wad of sour leaf, sharing a chew or two with the black brothers on guard and hearing what they had to say. None of the men on the day watch were part of his scheme. Even so, he figured it was good to have some sense of what they were thinking. Mostly what they were thinking was it was bloody cold. The wind was rising as the shadows lengthened. It made a high, thin sound as it shivered through the stones of the ring wall. I hate that sound, Little Giant said. It sounds like a babe in the brush, wailing away for milk. When he finished the circuit and returned to the dogs, he found Lark waiting for him. The officers are in the old bear's tent again, talking something fierce. That's what they do, said Chet. They're highborn, all but Blaine. They get drunk on words instead of wine. Lark sidled closer. Cheesewitz keeps going on about the bird, he warned, glancing about to make certain no one was close. Now he's asking if we cached any seed for the damn thing. It's a raven, said Chet. It eats corpses. Lark grinned. His might be? Or yours. It seemed to Chet that they needed the big man more than they needed Lark. Stop fretting about Small Paul. You do your part. He'll do his. Twilight was creeping through the woods by the time he rid himself of the sisterman and sat down to edge his sword. It was bloody hard work with his gloves on, but he wasn't about to take them off. Cold as it was, any fool that touched steel with a bare hand was going to lose a patch of skin. The dogs whimpered when the sun went down. He gave them water and curses. Half a night more, and you can find your own feast. By then he could smell supper. Darwin was holding forth at the cook fires. At the cook fires, Chet got his heel of hard bread and a bowl of bean and bacon soup from Hake the cook. The wood's too silent, the old forester was saying. No frogs near that river, no owls in the dark. I never heard no deader wood than this. Them teeth of yours sound pretty dead, said Hake. Darwin clacked his wooden teeth. No wolves, neither. There was, before, but no more. Where'd they go, you figure? Someplace warm, said Chet. Of the dozen odd brothers who sat by the fire, 4 were his. He gave each one a hard. It's interesting how George is being fair, right? He's giving us all these clues. It's getting even colder. It's it's totally silent, right? He's really, all the wolves have run away. Like he's telling us what's coming.
Yeah.
Of the dozen odd brothers who sat by the fire, 4 were his. He gave each one a hard, squinty look as he ate, to see if any showed signs of breaking. Dirk seemed calm enough, sitting silent and sharpening his blade the way he did every night. And Sweet Donald Hill was all easy japes. He had white teeth and fat red lips and yellow locks that he wore in an artful tumble about his shoulders, and he claimed to be the bastard of some Lannister. Maybe he was at that. Chet had no use for pretty boys, nor for bastards neither, but Sweet Donald seemed like to hold his own. He was less certain about the forester the brothers called Sawwood, more for his snoring than for anything to do with trees. Just now he looked so restless he might never snore again, and Maslin was worse. Chet could see sweat trickling down his face despite the frigid wind. The beads of moisture sparkled in the firelight like so many little wet jewels. Maslin wasn't eating neither, only staring at his soup as if the smell of it was about to make him sick. I'll need to watch that one, Chet thought. Assemble! The shout came suddenly from a dozen throats and quickly spread to every part of the hilltop camp. Men of the Night's Watch, assemble at the central fire. Sounds like a babe wailing for mother's milk. Frowning, Chet finished his soup and followed the rest. The old bear stood before the fire with Smallwood, Locke, Withers, and Blaine ranged behind him in a row. Mormont wore a cloak of thick black fur with his raven perched upon his shoulder, preening its black feathers. This can't be good. Chet squeezed between Brown Bernard and some Shadow Tower men. When everyone was gathered, save for the watchers in the woods and the guards on the ring wall, Mormont cleared his throat and spat. The spittle was frozen before it hit the ground. Brothers, he said, men of the Night's Watch. So the spit freezing is almost certainly a reference to Jack London's To Build a Fire. That's sort of the point of that story is that a guy misjudges just how cold it is, and he's testing how cold it is by spitting, and whether it freezes before it hits and how quickly it freezes is how he judges the temperature. And when he realizes how quickly it's freezing, he realizes it's in trouble. Men, his raven screamed. Men, men. I'm going from memory from when I was a kid, because I read it when I was a kid, but it always struck me that specific aspect of that story kind of stuck with me, and so I'm pretty sure that's what's going on there. Anyways, it's a very famous story. The Wildlands are on the march, following the course of the Milkwater down out of the mountains. Thorne believes their van will be upon us 10 days hence. Their most seasoned raiders will be with Harmon Dog's Head in that van. The rest will likely form a rear guard or ride in close company with Mance Rayder himself. Elsewhere, their fighters will be spread thin along the line of march. They have oxen, mules, horses, but few enough. Most will be afoot and ill-armed and untrained. Such weapons as they carry are more like to be stone and bone than steel. They are burdened with women, children, herds of sheep and goats, and all their worldly goods besides. In short, though they are numerous, they are vulnerable. They do not know that we are here, or so we must pray. They know, thought Chet. You bloody old pussbag, they know, certain as sunrise. Corn Halfhand hasn't come back, has he? Nor Jarman Buckwell. If any of them got caught, you know damn well the Wildlings will have rung a song or two out of them by now. Swallow stepped forward. Mance Raider means to break the wall and bring Red War to the Seven Kingdoms. Well, that's a game two can play. On the morrow, we'll bring the war to him. We ride at dawn with all our strength, the old bear said as a murmur went through the assembly. We will ride north and loop around to the west. Harma's van will be well past the fist by the time we turn. The foothills of the Frostfangs are full of narrow, winding valleys made for ambush. Their line of march will stretch for many miles. We shall follow them in several places at once and make them swear we were 3,000, not 300. Now, this is a little weird to me. He specifically says that they're going to reach us in 10 days. Then he says, tomorrow we're going to ride. And I guess that means they're going to ride for days? Because Harma's van will be well past the fist by the time we turn. We know that they're not even going to be to the fist for 10 days. So they're going to be riding for like well over 10 days?
Yeah, well, that'd be half the path. Or
I don't know. It's a little weird. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming to get, well, you know what happens when you assume, but I'm assuming to get to the little valleys and passages that would allow them to attack the middle, they have to ride a certain ways in one direction and then turn. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not weird. I mean, it sounds like it's a long ride that they're going to go on here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's awful funny, though, that...
No, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. We know that they're moving slowly 4 or 5 miles a day. It's going to be 10 days. And you're going to go riding. And that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
Oh.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. George doesn't necessarily always... I don't think his logistics of his fights are always.
Well, if the van reaches the fist of the first men, they're going to know somebody had been there.
Yeah.
So they
need them well past.
They need to attack. Yeah, they need to attack before the van gets.
Yeah, but that's just it. But he claims that they're going to be. Harma's van will be well past the fist by the time we turn. That doesn't make any sense.
No. It sounded good the first time you read it.
Yeah. Harma's van will be well past the fist by the time we turn. The foothills of the Frostfangs are full of narrow, winding valleys made for ambush. Their line of march will stretch for many miles. We shall follow them in several places at once and make them swear we were 3,000, not 300. So they definitely think they are the 300 Spartans.
Yeah.
And the way they are trying to avoid the vanguard and inflict maximum damage is definitely not the worst possible plan. But I still think using the wall is probably a better option.
Yeah.
We'll hit hard and be away before their horsemen can form up to face us, Thorne Smallwood said. If they pursue, we'll lead them a merry chase, then wheel and hit again farther down the column. We'll burn their wagons, scatter their herds, and slay as many as we can. Mance Raider himself, if we can find him. Good luck with that. If they break and return to their hovels, we've won. If not, we'll harry them all the way to the wall and see to it that they leave a trail of corpses to mark their progress. There are thousands, someone called from behind Chet. We'll die, that was Maslin's voice, green with fear. Die, screamed Mormont's raven, flapping its black wings. Die, die, die. Many of us, the old bear said. Perhaps even all of us. But as another Lord Commander said 1,000 years ago, that is why they dress us in black. Remember your words, brothers, for we are the swords in the darkness, the watchers on the walls. The fire that burns against the cold, Sir Malindor locked drew his longsword. The light that brings the dawn, others answered, and more swords were pulled from scabbards. Then all of them were drawing, and it was near 300 upraised swords and as many voices crying, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men. Chet had no choice but to join his voice to the others. The air was misty with their breath, and the firelight glinted off the steel. He was pleased to see Larkin, Softfoot, and sweet Donald Hill joining in, as if they were as big fools as the rest. That was good. No sense to draw attention when their hour was so close. When the shouting died away, once more he heard the sound of the wind picking at the ring wall. The flames swirled and shivered as if they too were cold, and in the sudden quiet the old bear's raven cawed loudly and once again and said, Die! Clever bird, thought Chet, as the officers dismissed them, warning everyone to get a good meal and a long rest tonight. Chet crawled under his furs near the dogs, his head full of things that could go wrong. What if that bloody oath gave One of his, a change of heart. Or Small Paul forgot and tried to kill Mormont during the second watch in place of the third. Or Masson lost his courage, or someone turned informer, or he found himself listening to the night. The wind did sound like a wailing child, and from time to time he could hear men's voices, a horse's whinny, a log spitting in the fire, but nothing else. So quiet. He could see Bessa's face floating before him. It wasn't a knife I wanted to put in you, he wanted to tell her. I picked you flowers, wild roses and tansy and golden cups. It took me all morning. His heart was thumping like a drum, so loud he feared it might wake the camp. Ice caked his beard all around his mouth. Where did that come from with Bessa? Where did that come from with the ice around your mouth? Anyway, whenever he'd thought of her before, it had only been to remember the way she'd looked, dying. What was wrong with him? He could hardly breathe. Had he gone to sleep? He got to his knees and something wet and cold touched his nose. Chet looked up. Snow was falling. He could feel tears freezing to his cheeks. It isn't fair, he wanted to scream. Snow had ruined everything he'd worked for, all his careful plans. It was a heavy fall, thick white flakes coming down all about him. How would they find their food caches in the snow or the game trail they meant to follow east? They won't need Daiwa nor Bannon to hunt us down, neither, not if we're tracking through fresh snow. But snow hid the shape of the ground, especially by night. Horse could stumble over a root, break a leg on a stone. We're done, he realized. Done before we began. We're lost. There'd be no lord's life for the leechman's son, no keep to call his own, no wives nor crowns, only a wilding sword in his belly, then an unmarked grave. The snow's taken it all from me, the bloody snow. Snow had ruined him once before, Snow and his pet pig. Chet got to his feet. His legs were stiff. And notice that the snow is the first word in the sentence both times there. So the fact that it's capitalized is semi-ambiguous as to whether either or both of those actually do. I mean, obviously the second one does because snow is pet pig, but the first one is certainly somewhat ambiguous in terms of how he wrote it, as when it changes from being Snow to Jon Snow could be at the beginning of the second one rather than the first one. Anyway,
well, I think the first one is Jon Snow.
No, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's deliberately written so that it could be read the other way. So that as you're reading the sentence, you start off thinking that he's thinking of regular Snow, and then you realize no, he really does mean Jon Snow. Chet got to his feet. His legs were stiff, and the falling snowflakes turned the distant torches to vague orange glows. He felt as though he were being attacked by a cloud of pale, cold bugs. They settled on his shoulders, on his head. They flew his nose and his eyes. Cursing, he brushed them off. Samuel Tarley, he remembered. I can still deal with Sir Piggy. He wrapped his scarf around his face, pulled up his hood, and went striding through the camp to where the cowards slept. The snow was falling so heavily that he got lost among the tents, but finally he spotted the snug little windbreak the fat boy had made for himself between a rock and the raven cages. Charlie was buried beneath a mound of black wool blankets and shaggy furs. The snow was drifting in to cover him. It looked like some kind of soft round mountain. Steel whispered on leather, faint as hope, as Chet eased his dagger from his sheath. One of the ravens quirked, "Snow!" Another muttered, peering through the bars with his black eyes. The first added a snow of its own. He edged past them, placing each foot carefully. He would clap his left hand down over the fat boy's mouth to muffle his cries, and then, "Ahoo!" He stopped mid-step, swallowing his curse as the sound of the horn shuddered through the camp, faint and far, yet unmistakable. Not now. Gods be damned, not now. The old bear had hidden Far Eyes in a ring of trees around the fist to give warning of any approach. Jarman Buckwell's back from the giant's stare, Chet figured, or Corn Halfhand from the skirling pass. A single blast of the horn meant brothers returning. If it was the half-hand, Jon Snow might be with him, alive. Sam Tully sat up, puffy-eyed, and stared at the snow in confusion. The ravens were cawing noisily, and Chet could hear his dogs baying. Half the bloody camp's awake. His gloved fingers clenched around the dagger's hilt as he waited for the sound to die away. No sooner had it gone than it came again, louder and longer. "Ahoo!" "Gods!" he heard Sam Tarley whimper. The fat boy lurched to his feet tangled in his cloak and blankets. He kicked them away and reached for a chainmail hauberk he'd hung on the rock nearby. As he slipped the huge tentative garment down over his head and wriggled into it, he spied Chet standing there. "Was it two?" he asked. "I dreamed I heard two blasts." "No dream," said Chet. "Two blasts to call the watch to arms. Two blasts for foes approaching. There's an axe out there with Piggy writ on it, fat boy. Two blasts means wildlings." The fear on that big moon face made him want to laugh. "Bugger them all to seven hells. Bloody Harma, bloody Mance Raider, bloody Smallwood. He said they wouldn't be on us for another. So LML would want us to note Sam's moon face again.
Yeah.
The sound went on and on and on until it seemed it would never
That's
die.
gonna be my new ringtone.
The ravens were flapping and screaming, flying about their cages and banging off the bars, and all about the camp. The brothers of the Night's Watch were rising, donning their armor, buckling on sword belts, reaching for battle axes and bows. Samuel Tarley stood shaking, his face the same color as the snow that swirled down all around them. 3, he squeaked to Chet. That was 3. I heard 3. They never blow 3, not for hundreds and thousands of years. 3 means others. Chet made a sound that was half a laugh and half a sob, and suddenly his small clothes were wet. He could feel the piss running down his leg, see steam rising off the front of his breeches. That's what he says. Part of his plan. Part of the events went just as he planned, sort of.
Yeah.
Up next, Chapter 1, Jamie 1. A boulder falls, almost like a meteor.
Yeah, Jamie. I'm always talking about Hidden Fingers, the undead attacking the night before they are getting ready to leave. I think is some more divine intervention.
Ha ha.
So, I mean, does that divine intervention is it future Bran, or is it the other person playing the game of Cybass that has sent them to attack while they were still at the Fist of the First Men before they could leave? If they left and attacked, then they would be closer to the wildlings, and if they attacked either at that time, then they could possibly join forces against the undead, which would make it harder for the kill.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about what happens, one of the most important events might be Sam the Slayer. So that could be part of this.
You pointed it out. With Bran possibly having to do things that seem like Littlefinger says, seem to go against his interest or make it look like it's going against him. I mean, Sam the Slayer is probably the most important thing to come out of the undead attack of the Fist of the First Men.
Well, and a vacancy for the Night's Watch Lord Commander.
Yeah, well, that and Jon Snow. Yeah.
Yep.
Which, if that's the case, then is Bran somehow affecting or controlling what the undead do or when they do it?
Or he's arranging things for the timing, knowing what they will do, and arranging things for Mormont, right? I mean, like you said, this timing is a bit strange. Like he never did get. It's 10 days still, supposedly, and he never did get his the people he's waiting on, or any word of them, or sign of what happened to them. Yeah. So there doesn't seem to be any real trigger here to make him suddenly say, and we're doing it tomorrow morning. Okay. It's like, anyway.
Well,
so,
I mean,
yeah, maybe it is all timing being orchestrated by Bran or something.
Yeah. And also, you would think the logistics of 300 people packing up and leaving would need more than the night before's kind of, all right, tomorrow morning we're all riding out. It would be like a day or two. We got to plan for it type situation. But I mean, like I said, I think that is a hint that the undead attack the night before that they were leaving is a hint to us of the hitting magic and the hidden fingers that are being played in front of us in these books.
Have completely unrelated note, have you read the Dario is Immortal thing?
No, I just saw that. I was like, oh crap, I got to read this.
Or you've just uncovered the real reason he can't get over his timeline hump for the next book. Yeah, That's certainly true. That part of the complexity is brand and trying to figure out how this is all supposed to work.
Yeah, it's called a Myronese knot, but it might be a brand knot.
Yeah, absolutely. Or that was Mirany's knot was before the problems he was having before dance, and now he's got the time travel knot.
Well, I mean that's it, time travel is extremely tricky thing to start messing with, because if you start it before you've planned the finish of it, or planned how it was all possible, or got all your ducks in a row, but you put it in there and you've kept it in there because you've had it in there from the beginning, and you still haven't gotten it the timelines or whatever unraveled, you the how to get to the end from where you're at might not always be obvious.
Yep. And so a brief discussion of the Dario thing would be that we're in a world. We're in a world where we know people can live a long time. There's definitely been rumors of people making themselves continue to appear young. Alessandra appears to likely be doing that, right? Years beyond count and so forth.
The witch at Heron Hall.
Dario has actually dropped some lines like that. He has actually said, so huge numbers and things that sound like he's just bragging. But the person who wrote up that theory was like, well, shouldn't some of these people, given that we're in a world that where people like Melisandre exist, shouldn't some of these people actually go to Dany rather than to Stannis? Like, shouldn't there be somebody who's wants to be near the magic of the dragons, increasing their power, who looks a lot younger than they are, and wouldn't we expect to see clues of that from some of the people that are around Dany? And when we do see those clues, right? And then symbolically, there's specifically references to the Yellow King and things with him, and his name ties to some of these things, and so he's saying, oh yeah, and I found another quote from George on the whole naming thing. In addition to that, I mean, you've seen me post that YouTube link a few times where he talks about that, but there's actually an audio interview that's posted, and he talks about baby names and the baby book names, and reading through them and figuring out his character names based on what the names mean.
Right.
It's kind of similar to that YouTube quote that I've tweeted out a few times. But anyway, the point is that there seems to be a lot of clues that Dario is in fact immortal and really freaking old.
I'll try to read that today. Well, I just saw that on a separate note. I saw that, and I didn't catch it because I was driving when she sent the text. My wife had let me know that Nick, the guy that we're dealing with Clayton Holmes, the night before last, we got a text saying, "Welcome to the Clayton Holmes family for closing on your house." And we're like, "Oh, yay, we should be getting a phone call." And then this morning, or no, last night, after my wife had gone to bed, Nick had texted her saying that we're getting keys today for the trailer. So I'm assuming when she gets off work, I'll find out what time, that type situation, that we go do our final walkthrough with them, get her picture taken, to become part of the Clayton family and all that kind of stuff they can put on their website or whatever. Just to let y'all know, going out into the world when it's hot, there are no jeans, there are no cowboy boots, there will be no leather vest, there will be no cowboy hat. It'll be me in shorts and this shirt and a ball cap in the picture. So, yeah, appreciate that, Mountain Car. So, yeah, we're happy about that.
Great.
Yeah, I forgot why I said that, but
you said that you kind of associated the contact with me texting you the.
Yeah. That's when I saw. Yeah, I'm the world. I'm a fair weather friend. I am the worst. I haven't spoken to my sister when she watches this. I apologize. I don't think about it. It's not that I'm trying to be out of sight, out of mind. It's just the way my brain works. If you're not right in front of me, I'm sorry, my brain doesn't go down that path. It's like last night, my wife 3 times, "Are you going to move the car? Are you going to move the car? Did you move the car?" I'm like, "No, I forgot." I just My brain doesn't work that way, and I don't mean to be that way. It's just the way I am. But I mean, did see your text, and I'm like, "Ooh, Dario," which I had thought that Dario was Benjamin, but apparently that's probably completely wrong.
Well,
And the only reason I think that is if you believe the Order of the Green Hand and how
right.
fancy Benjamin dressed and all this stuff, the
Mhm.
furthest person from where Benjamin is at the beginning of the story, the most colorful woman laying, everything that Benjamin was denied is Dario. And
Well,
one,
and that's another part of the story of Dario, right? Is he's got blue eyes that are almost purple, and he's got hair that we don't know what color it is because he's always dyeing it.
right. The only feature that could even be close with both of them is the nose, if I'm not mistaken. One's I forget what it is. One's pointy. The other one I can't remember the descriptions, but
I would assume that Benjamin would have a long Stark face,
yeah. But
or maybe I should say the York look. See, Triple Carries episode 1.
hey, there you go. That's the first time you've mentioned this. We talked just long enough to where you could get one in today, other than the shirt.
And also, Dario and Benjamin are never in the same room with each other. I call that textual evidence.
Thank you
And
for the
thanks,
assist,
Sandy.
Pod. I appreciate the help. Well, that was my only. There's no anything backing that up whatsoever. It's just like I said. I just looked for the most opposite of what Benjamin was at the beginning of the story, and that's like, hey, that's Dario. He's
I'm
not
glad we
dressed
could.
in
I'm glad
black.
we
He's
could.
colorful as far as possible. He's sleeping with women left and right. That's everything Benjamin wanted. I
I'm
would
glad.
think.
I'm glad we could. I'm glad we could throw throw Lizzie a bone there. Dario equals Riz God. Benjamin equals Small Wolf Energy. Okay.
There you go.
River
Hey,
Six
Baron
Skins.
Sixskins. Oh, I like that name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I
That's a,
I don't know why I told y'all my Dario theory.
that's all right. It's
Yeah.
fun to throw out some nice theories.
Well,
Well, you did because it was Dario, and we were talking
yeah.
about.
Well,
I brought up
that's
Dario.
how my brain works. Okay.
I
I
brought up
look for the
Dario.
opposite. I look for everything that I thought Benjamin would want, and then also with um the Azor High and the making of the sword, pulling the sword from flame. I looked at all the characters that we know in our story, and the only person that would have a legitimate reason to pull a sword from flame is Gendry. He's a blacksmith. And there is the potential that he might be somewhat possible the actual child of Robert and Cersei. Cersei is Targaryen. That would put Gendry in that bloodline. And I know that's no, it's either Danny or John. But like I said, that was my.
Well, he's already of the bloodline. He's Robert's bastard, and Robert has the throne through his Targaryen grandmother.
Yeah, but is it in that same bloodline that was the pairing of these two Targaryens from their bloodline, the prince that was promised? I think that's like 2 generations back, so it
Yeah,
might not be.
it might be. Yeah, it might not be quite far enough
Yeah,
back,
I think
or
the
too far back, I
Targaryen that
should say.
married into House Baratheon was a
Might be too far
generation.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe yeah. So that if he is the secret child between those two, that puts him in that bloodline, and he does work with swords and fire, and would have a legitimate reason and the knowledge of how to make a sword. Uh, so the reforging of Lightbringer, there's not unless they're given hidden knowledge. Um, I appreciate that, Valencar. Like I said, it's kind of out there, but that's just the way my brain works.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Robert's grandmother.
Yeah, I said that. I said Robert's grandmother. Yep.
That would put her right at around the same time. Because isn't it the marriage of Ares' mother and father from that bloodline is the bloodline that the Princess Promise was born?
Yeah, that's why I think you're right that she was already alive and not that of that line. I think you're correct.
Yeah.
Don't forget Hot Pie.
Exactly. You never know.
Who knows?
He works
Who
with
knows?
fire also. There you go, Pop. I like the way you think. So Friday we get to say some of my favorite words. Jamie won.
They are fun chapters.
That's
Around
what I
fires.
said, Pop. He is around fire.
Yep.
But all right, we're
Forges the
almost to our
food.
yeah. It took him 3 tries to get the wolf biscuit or the wolf bread.
Anyway.
I know. I went on there a
I'm
little
not sure
bit.
how it fails, but I'm not sure. I don't know if Hot Pie would ever fail on his baking. But anyway.
Nah. I do love the actor they had play Hot Pie when he starts going into telling people, well, this is how you need to cook. You can see on his face that he's really getting into the role. I know he's not in there for very long. I know they bring him back for like 1 episode, but I really like the actor's portrayal of Hot Pie that did the job. Because when he's talking about how to do gravy or whatever,
Yeah, we're
it
not far
looks
from
like
that in
he
this
really
story.
knows
Actually,
what
that's
he's
pretty
talking
early in
about.
Storm. That's pretty
Hmm?
early in Storm. I think that's pretty early in Storm. That's one of Arya's like first couple chapters, I think.
Mm.
So we're pretty close to that actually.
Yeah. Like I said, this feels weird starting a new book.
Yeah.
Because I had to sit there. Both my phone and my tablet have when I go to type in StreamYard A, and then it's Clash of Kings, and then it's got all the names. And then now today I had to go A, and then it put up Clash. And I'm like, no, we got to type in Storm.
Pastry that was promised.
Yeah, pastries. Yeah, basically. I'm hungry now.
All right, grab a
Yeah, I
bite.
think I'll eat before I go get Carter. All right, everybody. I appreciate everybody that joined.
Yeah, the car says excited for book 3. You know, there's the old joke of which is your favorite book and why is it Storm?
It is a good book, without a doubt. I don't know. For some reason, the first one still always holds a really nice place.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's because it can stand on its own, and I don't know. I've always liked beginnings and launches things and so forth. Yeah, I tend to agree.
I think that the reason that Storm stands out as most people's favorite is it is the first book that deviates from the show. It's where the deviations really start and show up in our story. The ones like me that saw a couple episodes of the show before they found out about the books, that weren't in it from the beginning, that type of situation. That gave us new avenues of knowledge or new things that we didn't know was going to happen, type situation.
Well, it's definitely the most action packed, and I think that's really what it boils down to. Is it's got the red wedding and the purple wedding, and it's kind of crams the most plot into the single book.
Yeah, it's pretty fast paced.
Yep.
Yeah. Book 1 is much. Yeah, I agree, Valen.
Yeah. Basically, that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, the Game of Thrones will always the book will always hold a special place just because it's what started this journey for everybody. But that being said, we're right at our hour mark, so I mean we're really good about hitting our numbers now. Friday, Jamie won. Hope everybody enjoys their hump day. I hope I get keys to the house tonight. So I got my fingers crossed. Everybody that joined us today, I appreciate it. Valencar, the Bear Mercy Skin, the Valencar pod, Krista Crow, Sanji,
Mother Ryan.
Libby. I know Lady Thistle's out there somewhere. Charles is out there too. But we appreciate everybody, and we will see y'all Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. So y'all be good. Take care. Bye, Richard.
Bye.